All right, welcome to another episode of Let There Be Talk. Today is June 8th, and this is episode number 731. Thank you for joining me, my friends. This episode is brought to you by Standard & Strange, my favorite store in America. You're looking for some leather jackets, some denim, some boots, whatever you need, only the finest quality. It can be found at Standard & Strange, New York City, Berkeley, and out there in New Mexico. Yep, standardandstrange.com. Tell them I sent you. Go to their Instagram, follow them. Just a massive, incredible collection. I've been wearing a leather jacket lately. People are asking where I got it. I got it after my trip in New York City right at Standard & Strange. Standardandstrange.com. Japanese denim, real McCoy leather jackets, Y2 leather jackets, John Lofgren boots, everything. All handmade, the best. Okay. That was my phone dinging off right there. Let me see who it is. Ah, yes. It's a new Patreoner. We have some new Patreoners, my friend. Patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Join right now. Get all kinds of bonus episodes. New Patreoners, Lee Martin and Tim Porter. Thank you for joining the Patreon. Also, Frank Bernacki. Thank you very much, my man, for the donation. I cannot thank all of you enough, man. I really appreciate it, and I hope you love the Patreon bonus episodes and the live Zooms. Let's get into the guests today. Oh, my God. Joe Bonamassa has returned to Let There Be Talk. This is his second time here. Don't ask me what the other episode was because it was like 4 or 5 years ago, and you can find it with Google. But Joe has returned, and since I had him on last, we have become friends, and I just love this man's energy. I love his passion for collecting guitars. I love his playing. And I saw him play recently at the Troubadour with Billy Gibbons, and he was just smoking it on this 1958 flame top. It actually wasn't a flame top, but it was more of like a bird's eye kind of mapley top, and it just crumbled me. I love the guy, and oh man, what a great conversation. We get into comedy, a lot of comedy. Joe's a comedy fan. We get into the situation of what's going on with streaming and the business, of course. We dive into the prices of Dumbles and his vintage collection. What's new in it, what's he been doing, everything. Okay, before I get the episode going, I do want to tell you, tomorrow is the Bon Scott Bash. It's almost sold out. Me, Bill Burr, Dave Lombardo, Scott Ian, and Scott Holliday from Rival Sons, Mike Inez, Alice in Chains, Juliette Lewis, Josh Z, Josh Freeze from the Foo Fighters on the drums, Steve Gorman, formerly of the Black Crowes. If you have not read Steve Gorman's book, oh my God. Billy, my main man Rowe from Rock and Roll Relics, and Buck Cherry, and one of my oldest friends, 40 years friend from Jet Boy days. Lots and lots going on. Did I say Mike Inez, Alice in Chains? Bill Burr playing some drums and doing comedy. I'll be doing some comedy too. And then we will rock you for a couple hours, full AC/DC. Scott Ian. I think I repeated these names, but I don't know. I feel pretty fucking good today. It's weird. Like today, I actually feel pretty fucking good. This is how you know you feel good, when you sit down and you go, man, I feel pretty good today. That is wild. Anyway, we're there tomorrow. Gibson has given us a Epiphone SG to give away. I will be giving away an Epiphone SG. We have an incredible show poster from Kai Aarons, one of my favorite artists who was on the podcast recently. And then Bill's going to give away one of his snare drums, and we will sign all this stuff. So, get down there. And I also have a gift for everybody that shows up. It's going to be a great time. And I'm telling you, you do not want to miss this. And I hope you see it. Oh, man, I can't make it this time, but next time. Yeah, right. Next time. Last time people said that, we had a little thing called COVID. We did the Bon Scott Bash 2 days before COVID, when the whole planet shut down. Oh, also today I'll be on Eddie Trunk's show at 12:20 Pacific time. That's today, Monday, January 8th. Catch me on Eddie Trunk's show on Sirius XM. I'll be doing a interview. Also, you can hear me on the last Ron Bennington Sirius XM show, which is available online. All right, guys, I absolutely love you. Oh, I do want to give a little heads up. We get into talking about ZZ Top, and I said I believe they're the first band that was kind of blues, but became, huge in the rock world. And what I meant was, they became super, super mainstream with later on with all their MTV videos and all of that. And I just wanted to give that out there because people go, what about Led Zeppelin 1? They're fucking blues, and they're fucking all over the radio. But, so there you go. When you're interviewing people, you're fucking concentrating on what they're saying if you are doing your job as an interviewer. And, sometimes you just rattle off shit. But I do believe ZZ Top was definitely a full-blown blues band in that sense of like Texas blues. And then they became like radio and MTV stars. So there you go. 731 is here with Joe Bonamassa. Candles are lit, my friends. 12 years, 730 episodes. I can't remember when you were on. Maybe 5 years ago or something?
Maybe 2017 or 2018. I mean, the pandemic basically, it's the lost years.
Yeah.
Like what you think is 5 years ago is actually 7 because there's like a year and a half blank spot,
I have it. I just wrote it down. I think it was, let me look here. In my comedy career was 55-62 gigs in the 14 years.
So in comedy, this is one of the things that I really wanted to ask you was like some the few comedians I know, yourself and Tiffany Haddish and a few others, like to gig once a night is not uncommon. Like
not at all.
You're hitting. You got a 10 p.m. slot. Maybe sometimes you're doing 2 slots a night.
Yeah.
Where musicians, it's if you're off the road, maybe it's once a month. Maybe you go sit in. But it's, and I always say, man, like give me 2 weeks after a tour, I'm rusty as fuck because the gig chops go away and you got to build it back up. So is that kind of the keep the creative juices going, try out new material?
Well, when I started, the first year I did 298 gigs, and then the next year I did 540 or something.
Right.
And for the first 3 years, I never even took a day off. And then one day, Bill Burr said, hey, I know what you're doing. I respect the work ethic, but you got to take a day off here and there so you're not just writing about, you're only at the comedy club and you're not going out and experiencing stuff anymore. So you start to run out of shit to talk about.
Yeah.
And so I remember I went and saw My Morning Jacket. I took the weekend off and went to Santa Barbara Bowl. And I was there, and in 5 minutes, I had my joke book out, and I was just because it was just like a flurry of bits were coming to me, just from being in a massive amount of people.
People watching is great for bits. Now, I have such respect for comedians because in my business, like I speak once a night. Like we play an hour straight, say thank you, keep moving, show goes by fast. And then I'll do like a bit about something I've observed in the town. Right. Some of the bits go over better than others, but if it's not going over well, And I'm like, okay, thank you. And I introduce the band, and we're gone. You know, we
Yeah.
like play another hour. If you get on stage and the bits are not working, it's probably a long. Those minutes go by super slow.
Yeah, as you do it over the years, you occasionally you'll have this awful night where not even your super bits are working.
Right.
Like a hit song.
Yeah.
You know, man, we're not fucking working tonight. Let's go into fucking, just got paid. You know.
Play the hits, yeah.
Yeah. And then the people are like, yeah. On a bad night. And it happens, I think, maybe 2 or 3 times a month for me, because if you're trying a lot of new stuff, you're going to have bad nights. If you're not having bad nights, you're not really trying. And it's interesting, man, when you're up there and not even the super bits are working, you're going, oh, shit, I'm fucked here.
Yeah.
And the feeling of that is insane, because you don't have a drummer and a bass player and a keyboard player to go, let's just fucking play these and get out.
Let's jam.
Yeah, let's get the fuck out of here.
I would say, like, I know exactly what I'm heading into when the house lights go off. If the house lights go off and it sounds like Frampton Comes Alive, 1976, I go, they're into it. This gig is mine to fuck up. And if the house lights go off and it's just like a polite applause, I'm like, oh, they're gonna make us work, you know?
Yeah.
And and it's the same 2,000 or 2,500 people. It's just the mood they're in. It's just, but it doesn't take away from the fact that they're enjoying it. They're just not as vocal about it,
Right.
But it's nice to get something back.
Oh yeah, I've done gigs where after the show you see key people. When you're a comedian, you're out of your mind. You could be killing, but you'll see 2 or 3 people in the room not laughing, and those are the ones you're focusing on, like this fucking asshole. And you'll see him after at the meet and greet, and they'll be like, "God, you were so funny." And I go, "Well, yeah, I couldn't tell from your face."
Yeah, exactly. It's like nothing. And I always say, like, the bad gigs, the gigs that don't go over well, or you make mistakes, or you write a bad set list or something like that, those I learn way more than a gig that goes down flawlessly. And also the ones that you feel you were off and not your best or whatever, people have seen you 30 times, go, man, that was the best I've ever heard you play. I'm like, were you there? Were you out there? Because, like, I was sucking. You know?
That's when I learned a big fucking lesson about it's their experience, not mine. Of course, I want to fucking enjoy it, but if they come up and go, man, this was the best you ever seen them, I'm not going to go like, nah, dude, it was awful. Because then they're like confused. Like, was it awful? I mean, I had a great time. Maybe I didn't. And then you fucked them as they left. So when they say that, I go, hey, man, some people found something different in that performance than I found.
Yeah, and the difference between what you feel is your best and what you feel is your worst is probably 5%.
Totally.
And because once you have the 10,000 hours on stage, you have a baseline of you unless I trip and fall off the front of the stage.
Yeah,
it's going to be it's a guaranteed outcome. You're going to get through it. It's a professional band, great musicians. Set list is going to be what it is, and you get through it. But it's like you just put these weird expectations on yourself. Like, I really wanted to kill it tonight, and I find coming off a gig that the whole band gets off stage and goes, man, that was complete fire. I find that the show after that always dips.
Oh, yeah.
Always dips.
Oh, yeah.
Because
yeah.
you can't ride that momentum, and something happened. That'll be when an amp goes out, or clams, or miscues or something like that. You just have to ride that out. And that's why I love it, because a record is finite. You make a record, it goes out into the public. You can't change anything. You can regret not overdubbing this, or I could have done that better, or made a better song. A gig, you start at 0 every day. It's like, we may be kings and queens up there now, but tomorrow we start at 0 and we have to work our way back up the mountain. It's the nature of live performance.
I did the Garden like 3 weeks ago with Burr.
Great.
And I knew 2 months out, so it kind of fucked with me of like, oh my God, the Garden's coming. The Garden's coming. Right. That's all I kept thinking. Before, when I did the LA Forum, it was like a week before. He goes, you want to do the Forum? I'd be, oh yeah, don't have time to think about it. So I did the Forum. The next day, I had one of the best sets of my life. It's like out of body experience. The next day I do the Comedy Cellar, Sunday brunch show, bombed for a solid fucking 10 minutes, bombing in front of the booker, in front of people. And I'm like, I was so discombobulated, I didn't even know how to fix it. And I've done gigs for 14 years, but it was like, oh my God, here's the super bomb.
Right.
So, and that's it.
Yeah, and I always say to people who ask questions about what we do on stage, and I said, when everything's going good and you got gig chops, your voice is in good shape, the set list is tight, and people are into it, it's when a string breaks, an amp goes out, or something fucks up. Like, I've had the fire alarms go off in the middle of a show.
Yeah.
Like in Birmingham, Alabama. Literally, the guy in the lobby cooking hot dogs set off the fire alarm. He goes outside for a fucking cigarette, leaves the hot dogs in the lobby going too much, sets the fire alarm off, evacuates my show at the theater, which was 2,500 people, and the Eagles concert that was going on the same day at the arena. The same thing. And I'm like, well, we only played like 40 minutes. And I go, we can't just peace out.
Yeah.
So they brought everybody back, and like, to get that engine restarted, it was tough. And that's when you earn your money. It's like when kind of like your back is against the wall, and you can just kind of pivot and get out of these things and still have the audience, enjoy themselves, even though we share a very odd story about being evacuated for hot dogs. But that's where you earn your money, and that only comes with being on a stage. There's no substitute for that experience, and feeling like you get on the stage and you own that room. It's my house, and it's for 2 hours. After that, I don't care who owns this place.
Well, that's I think the major problem of these days, and this is not an old man talking, I'm just talking about experience, but you get somebody who has a couple crowd work bits on TikTok, or a guy who can burn it up on guitar on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then you put them into a live situation where, say, they've got 1 million followers all of a sudden, and they got to go tour, and they have zero stage experience, zero power went out, tour bus caught on fire,
or a heckler.
Yeah. I had a guy have a heart attack right when I walked on, opening for Marcus King.
Shit.
Just heart attack, clear, giving him the fucking shockers, and you're like, well, without any of those experiences, you're not going to understand what it is like. I've been on stage for 38 years now, and you've been on for
about the same, at 35.
Right.
Yeah.
And you cannot, and as each time I think I've seen it all, you have not seen it all. It's like guitar collecting. We were just talking about it.
Yeah. And the thing about it, like, I run a very down the middle show. I don't preach to my audience. We don't do any politics. It's because the way I look at it, if you use an easy math, for every 1,000 people that show up to a gig, look at, we played Madison Square Garden, 18,000 people. Chances are, or if I play the Hollywood Bowl, chances are you're sitting there going, half these people think one way, half these people think another way, and they would probably argue amongst themselves. The one thing that unites them is music.
Yep.
And they're here for an escape. You can get on Twitter, you can get on all the social medias and espouse whatever views you have.
Yeah.
But we offer an escape, and that to me is something that I take great joy in watching, that people of all different political affiliations or the races and creeds,
sexualities, religions,
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They all dig fucking blues rock. I'm like, cool. And that's something, when a lot of times, there's people that try to bully you on social media. It's like, well, your silence is this and you're that. Like,
Way. Yeah.
We'll have a conversation off mic, and I'll tell you what I think. But I owe it to my fans to there's got to be some spaces left, or some bastion of entertainment that isn't completely political all the time.
Yeah.
The late night shows, it's it's like what Crossfire used to be on CNN, and you're like, I remember being on a late night show, just sitting in with a man, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
you know, it's like, I'm like, half your audience, like there's half your audience is going to turn the channel. You know what I mean? It's like, why wouldn't you want to just be down the middle and make people laugh with jokes or music that that appeals to a wider audience?
It is an interesting thing, you know. I've come to the realization in the last couple of weeks that what I want to talk about on stage in 24 is mostly about, hey, both sides suck.
Yeah.
How can we come back together as people?
Right.
And I hope it's not too far gone. I talk about it and I go, is somebody going to come back and go, hey, just kidding about the last 4 years? You know, I'm not really racist or something. You know what I mean? It's wild.
It is wild, and it's factional and it's tribal.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to listen. Like, I have friends that are very left and I have friends that are very right. And I keep those friends, and I would never defriend someone because of a Facebook post. One of the saddest trends that I've seen in the last 10 years is people like, oh, I've known this person 25 years and he said something about Trump or something about Biden.
Right.
And now I can't be friends. I'm like, no, you were friends first.
Right.
Like let's get back to the common denominator. Like, people get on as people, you know, and it's like a Facebook post or a Twitter or a Instagram thing should not be legally binding, and it shouldn't affect long-standing bonds and friendships over the years. And that's something I'm very careful about. It's like, listen, I agree to disagree, you know, and we'll just move on.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I keep all my social media very, very, it's like very, very down, straight and narrow, because if you don't like guitars, this isn't the place for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And it's guitars and pictures of gigs. That's pretty much my life on Instagram and Twitter. It's guitars and gigs and Simpsons. Okay. I'll retweet the Simpsons quotes.
Yeah.
That's it. If you don't like it, then unfollow and move on. You know, you're not going to get your news from Joe Bonamassa or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, it's just not, it's bad for, it's bad for your fan base. It's also bad for you personally, because I know people that are artists that go on there and just, all they want to do is argue their point. It's like, you're not going to convince.
Hey, man, you could be dead tomorrow.
It
is crazy how fast you could be dead.
Yeah, and you're not going to convince Les Paul 59 lover, you know, on Twitter of anything that he doesn't want to be convinced of. It's
not at all.
They live in a bubble,
and everybody's an expert online, which makes it worse.
Oh, everybody became a virus expert.
Yeah,
then
a doctor.
Then they pivoted to geopolitical. You know, when the war in Ukraine started. Well, and then military tacticians. Well, you know, these tanks need to be.
The atmosphere.
It's like, dude, you own
global warming.
Yeah, you own a fucking bakery.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I'm not going to take my advice from you. Well, I read some articles about it. Like, okay, great.
You know what I do each day? Like, I have a Facebook. I'm never, ever on it.
Yeah.
Except for every Monday, I put the podcast up.
Yeah.
And I tell people, don't even contact me there, because that thing doesn't even exist in my mind. It's never been on my phone or anything.
No.
I love Instagram for guitars, cars, architecture, and comedy.
Yeah.
That's my life on there, you know? I love Instagram.
And it's great because, you know, and what it used to be, I remember when people used to complain about, like, oh, if I see another picture of somebody's lunch on Facebook, I'm like, that used to be a community that just shared their like interest. And I've met a lot of great people that are now lifelong friends of mine, you know, from the guitar collecting world, that I would have never met if I wasn't, you know, on the Les Paul forum or
same here,
or you know, Instagram. And a lot of, like, you know, it's a small community, and we all look out for each other and be like, hey, I heard something's not straight about that one, you should watch out. And, you know, and we all give each other advice, because nobody knows everything about guitars and cars and you know, whatever. And that's what it's good for. It's when it's weaponized.
Yeah.
And it's
awful.
like, I'm going to destroy you and ruin your reputation on Twitter. I'm like, well, what happens if I don't check Twitter?
Yeah.
life goes on. The sun will rise again.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, say what you want. But eventually they punch themselves out.
They do.
And it's, once again, like I said, I have, for what you do, and Bill Burr is one of my favorite comedians, like and you as well. And I just, when you're in the Laugh Factory, a Comedy Store, whatever, improv, and you're trying out new bits, and it's, because everybody wants you to be edgy and take it up to the line, but God forbid you fucking cross the line just in the stream of consciousness, then like the people who go to those gigs wanting to be offended, I don't get. Why are you here?
Yeah.
It's like, why bother going to a comedy? It's like, yeah, you're going to be challenged, and it could be a little edgy, and you'd be like, oh, wow, I can't believe he said that. But it's part of the entertainment.
Let's get into, so I had you on the show years ago, and then and we became friends, and I ran into you at the Billy Gibbons.
Yeah.
I guess this is Christmas party he does every year at the Troubadour.
Birthday, Christmas. Yeah.
Right. And it was great to see you there. And of course, there's Billy. Billy I never met a guy that's that level of stardom that will just look you in the eyes, not look over your shoulder, and give you a solid 30 minutes. He's like, let me tell you, Dean, there's this guy making these new bursts with the humbuckers that are just crazy, and just into it, man.
He's so into it. And he's been into it for so long.
Yeah.
And he looks at guitars and amps and cars and music and blues and whatever. It's like he's hearing it and experiencing it for the first time. I'm like, I think he's turned 73 this year.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I had that enthusiasm now.
Yeah.
Like he's got. He's just so into it. And it's got to be an interesting life that he leads, because he's been so famous for so long.
Totally.
Like since 1970, he's been the guy with the beard.
Yeah.
He's had to be the guy with the beard.
With the Les Paul,
and that sound in those songs. And you could see sometimes it overwhelms him, because it's like Billy, everybody wants his attention. But I think he's one of my guitar idols, and just as someone as a career, I really look up to him, just how he's handled all the success that he's had over the years, and still just finds way to make like the same riffs interesting again. He just, nobody plays LaGrange like him. It's been covered 1 billion times, but when he goes into that breakdown, I've stood on stage with him when he goes into it, and I just take my hands off the guitar and I watch and I go, nobody places the notes like that. It's all him. All that creativity, all those cars and the wacky looking guitars, it's all him.
It's interesting to think about when you look at it. Blues rock, okay? We've got AC/DC. We know their blues come from the blues.
Yeah.
Stones come from the blues. But to me, it's really ZZ Top and Stevie Ray that created... It's almost a camouflage. We know it's straight blues. Dum, bum, 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 But it captured the rock and rollers to where it's not like, here comes the old blues rock. You know what I'm saying? They're really like, I think the only band, do you think, that really came out, hit the top 10 on FM radio with blues rock?
Yeah, I mean... when ZZ Top came out, they had the first album was called ZZ Top's first album, and Shake Your Tree. If you listen to it, it's got pedal steel in it, and you're like, well, that's clever, but it's the same. It's a heavy Texas riff, and to me, ZZ Top and Stevie Ray and Johnny Winter, like all the Texas guys, Albert Collins,
right.
and like all those guys that came out of Texas. There's something in the water down there, like especially with ZZ Top. It's like if you ask me to define the sound of the state of Texas, it's ZZ Top.
100%.
In a rock space.
100%, absolutely.
But when you listen to Tres Hombres, Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, LaGrange, you can close your eyes and you're on that highway where that brothel was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just this warm, not a hint of reverb on anything. And it's just this punchy, wonderful sound that those three guys created. And, they've been writing off blues since the 60s. I mean, like you watch interviews with Clapton when he was in Cream, and some journalist just point a mic in his face. It's like, well, it's just the same old blues that, it's like, so it's, and then next thing you know, Wheels of Fire come out, and then Jimi Hendrix and The Who and Led Zeppelin 1 was to me a blues album.
100%.
And it seems like every decade, the genre that is just perennial, it's always perennially written off. Like, oh, it's just blues, and somebody will come along and give it a B12 shot. Like my time was 2009. I came along and everybody thought I was English, and then here I am, the cover of every guitar magazine, the new king of the blues. I'm like, whatever. And then
Marcus King.
A few years later, Gary Clark Jr., the new king of the blues, and then Marcus King, the new king of the blues. Like that's great, because it's every 10 years somebody comes around and gives it a kick in the ass. In the 80s, it was Robert Cray, Stevie Ray, Albert Collins. And he had his big moment with Alligator.
And then you had the next wave, Johnny Lang, Lie to Me,
Kenny Wayne, and Kenny Wayne Shepherd.
Yep.
And here it is, the new sound of
the Gunslingers. They would always call it the Gunslingers on Guitar Player.
Early '90s, Gary Moore, when he went from being a rock guy to
still got the blues.
And that gives me hope, because B.B. King always used to say this to anybody it wasn't just me. It would be all the people that he mentored, Derek Trucks and Kenny Wayne Shepherd and Johnny Lang. Everybody would give a stage to. He'd always say, listen, man, my goal is to see, when I'm dead and gone, I want to see this music thriving in 100 years. And he passed those things, that wisdom down to a lot of people. Now, the kids of the 90s, myself, Kenny Wayne, Johnny Lang, we're all in our mid to late 40s, and we're helping people like the Marcus Kings who are in their 20s still, and Selwyn Birchwood and Joanne Shaw Taylor, and like all these people that are a decade or more younger. They're following the footsteps that B.B. King blazed, and that we tried to keep going, and that audience keeps growing, and changes, and the demographics change, and then you get a band like the Black Keys who basically played North Mississippi hill country blues,
total blues,
in front of an arena full of kids that didn't know it was blues to begin with.
Yeah.
And
Jack White,
and and it's like, because there's always something great and vital about blues, that when the music becomes too processed, there's always a recoil. When people had their fill of the boy bands of the late 90s, early 2000s, something organic shows up, and it's like a breath of fresh air. When people have had their fill of over-processed, melodined, non-singing, whatever pop music,
techno or anything,
in the case of Nashville, when everybody got weary about hearing about beers and trucks and fucking jeans, cut off jeans, and all this trite Music Row shit that they put out, then here comes Chris Stapleton saying something real, and killing it. And
I saw him last year.
And you go, for every action, there's an opposite reaction. Now, I'm not, I don't want to be clickbaited with Joe hates the music of Nashville. No, there's incredibly talented people there, but even the most hardened fans of the 615, it will tell you in private, they roll their eyes, just like, I cannot digest another beer truck song. It's just too much, and it became like lifestyle, it's like let me tell you about my truck and my beer and my girl.
It's just a commercial.
It's just and country radio had become so powerful, and it's still so powerful. It's one of the last terrestrial radio mediums that actually carries weight. Rock radio's a little bit, but if you listen to a country radio station outside of Nashville, just in your car, you will listen to hour after hour of the same 10 artists, the same 10 songs played hour. And you're like, man, if that's all you thought was going on in Nashville, there's way more great music that comes out of Nashville that you never hear on radio.
What's interesting about that too is, country music is the last people that buy actual physical CDs.
Yes.
Which is wild. They go down to the Walmart and they pick up the Chris Stapleton. So that's like a real sale.
It's a real sale. And you know, I knew there was trouble in the record business when Billboard and the charts started weighing streaming as a sale.
Yeah.
And it basically, because we used to come out and we sell about the same amount of records we always used to do. My fans have been very loyal, and they still buy CDs or vinyl and stuff like that. And we'd sound scan them. And I noticed we're like, well, in a business where the entire record selling population is down 60, 70%, I'm like, we're not charting as high as we used to on the Billboard Top 200 when our records were coming out. I'm like, we're selling the same kind of records. And the highest chart I ever got on the overall Billboard 200 was 9. I was like, wow, we're top 10. And that's a testament to my fans who bought the records. We got to number 2 in the UK, and we lost out on the number 1 spot by like 200 copies.
Oh,
that's fine. And
you got to go down and buy them yourself that day.
And what I was finding I'm like, I started doing the deep dive. I'm like, why are we charting in the 30s now? And it's because they weighed streaming. So they're actually penalizing you for having a fan base that actually prefers to support the artist by buying the CD, because we're not like Taylor Swift where we have 1 billion streams. We have some streams, and there are more now than it used to be. But back when the music business was cross-fading into streaming business, it was like we were getting penalized because the lack of streaming and the more sales was hurting the chart position. Not that it matters; it's
right.
Cadillac problems. But you go, wow. The entire industry now is really focused in on how many free samples you can give away, and Spotify and all Apple Music, they own it now, and you have to embrace it. It's not going to come back.
It's not coming back.
It's not coming back.
The genie's out of the bottle.
And I heard last year somebody saying, "Oh man, no, you know what's coming back? The kids are loving it." Or cassette tapes. I'm like, stop right there.
No,
that's a novelty.
Yeah, that's all that is.
And there's trouble in the record business is when you lease a new car, okay, or get into a brand new car, 2024, and you go, where's the CD player? There ain't none.
Ain't none.
It's over.
Yeah,
it's over. I have one CD player, and it's a DVD player, so it does both, and I'm a music guy. I stream it, and it's because I remember being on airplanes with literally a backpack full of CDs and a Discman, or like those little wallets you used to buy. And and you'd listen to Government Mule, whatever, like on your flight. Now that doesn't. You stream off the airplane.
Yep.
You can check your Instagram on the airplane now. There was no internet back then, and so the business has changed.
Absolutely.
DVDs. Same thing. Nobody's doing long form DVDs, and it's same thing in comedy, and it's the same thing in movies, and the movie business and the actors who just finished their strike found out what we in the music business have been living with for 15 years. Going, how come you're not going to pay me royalties on all the streams? Like, it doesn't work that way.
Yep. Yeah.
You too will learn how to add up fractional pennies.
It's fucking crazy.
The only way artists make money now is touring.
That's it.
And it's hard tickets. You can't, and thank God. I was worried when during the pandemic, when everybody was doing live stream this and live stream that, and they were playing gigs in their pajamas in their backyard. And I said, well, if they figure out a way to digitize concerts, it's pretty much, that's it for me.
Yeah.
I'm peacing out, because that's the ball game. Luckily, you cannot replace the value or the experience for the fan being in the room.
Yeah, that's what it's about, man. For me,
comedy, music,
yeah.
it's a collective energy, and it's way cooler, than watching. It's like if you're watching a comedy special, on TV, versus being in the room with it, it's way cooler to be in the room.
It doesn't even come close, because I've been to probably 20 live comedy special shoots of some of my best friends. and then I'm in the room, it's explosive.
Yeah.
And then I watch it on Netflix, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Next thing you know, you're just looking at your phone. You're like, it doesn't even come close to being around people, somebody behind you with a fucking weird laugh. Yeah. Somebody else fell out of their chair.
Right.
Some riffing, and you're in this organic room. Same with, we were in the Troubadour, and, Billy's playing, just got paid, or he's playing Jesus Just Left Chicago.
Yeah.
And immediately you're like, oh my God, it's just the feeling of that riff coming out of the speakers,
And it's happening in 3D in front of you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the fans, and it's the people who go to concerts and of any style understand the value of that.
Totally.
They not only supporting the artist, but they're getting something back from that in the sense that they're getting an experience that cannot be replicated in 2 dimensions. It's got to be 3D, and it's got to be live, and when you go see Billy Gibbons, every note off that stage is being played by a human.
Yeah.
You can't say that for a lot of bands.
No.
And that's another thing that I have issues with, is the amount of track that's being used in a live setting.
Right.
And I know a lot of big bands have to compete with other big bands on festivals, and it's hard to, if one person's using extra guitars or vocals on track, and then you go up there and...
Yeah, they're like, he sounds like shit.
Well, it sounds smaller.
Doesn't sound like the record.
Yeah, it sounds smaller. And, that's an integrity thing.
Yeah, totally.
And that's an integrity relationship with the artist and their fans. If the fans are cool with it, then who am I to say that's wrong? Me, I'd rather make a mistake and sound, have 7 people playing all at once, and that's it. There's the only thing that's on tape is the intro, music, and then we play Ethel Merman on the way out. There's no business like Chauvin's. It's the only thing that's on the iPod, and it to me, I sleep well at night knowing that. Now, if you do it a different way, that's okay, but my issue is when I watch some bands on TV and artists on TV, I'm like, man, the fucking Beatles didn't sing that in tune. You know? It's like, how are you nailing those BVs like that?
Yeah.
Why is there 6 of them and there's only 3 of you singing,
My issue on that is basically, I say, if their fans are still paying, then obviously they don't care.
They don't care.
That's all there is to it. Because if you don't like that, just don't pay and don't go.
Yeah.
Because it'll start affecting the ticket sales, and then they'd be like, oh, I guess. And I think maybe a few years down the road, you might get like, that was a weird era, right? Where everybody was running all that radar shit,
Right.
And it might turn into like, you got to go see this band because they fucking play it live, and it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, and in the blues genre, like especially, there's no tracks.
No,
man. You wouldn't last long, and it would be called out immediately because the blues genre isn't pop. It's not like ultra heavy music, and it's dynamic.
It's not slick.
Yes, and it's dynamic, and when you bring it down, you could hear. I love bringing it down so quiet, like in a theater where the audience can hear the pick noise coming off the guitar. It's like there's quiet, and then there's Buddy Guy quiet. And I always say, Buddy Guy quiet, bring it, because it makes people lean into their chairs, and they're hanging on every single phrase. If you just beat them over the head with loud, it becomes monotonous. So you gotta have peaks and valleys and light and shade and color and melody, and then when it's time to use the guitar as a weapon, unleash it, but then bring it down again.
Since I played music, that's how I look at my comedy. Yeah. All dynamics. A lot of times when I get on the stage in the arena opening for Bill, I'll just stand there for a minute. Mm-hmm. And the room will just completely get silent, like, what's he doing? And the uncomfortable weirdness of it.
Yeah.
I recorded a special in Denver at the Comedy Works, which is one of the greatest clubs in America. And it was incredible, the set. But then I listened to it, and they go, man, you got a great fucking record here and special. And I canned it. Because there was no dynamics. The audience was too hot. The whole time it was like, and I was, and I'm like, this doesn't have any dynamics. It almost sounds fake.
Yeah.
And I just canned it,
Yeah, there's some comedians that literally will shout their act to you and it becomes hard to listen to, even though the material is good. Some of the greatest bits ever, Sam Kinison.
Yeah.
When he gets super quiet, and you didn't know where he was going, and then it would just explode.
Dynamics.
Dynamics. And and I always looked at it. It's like the same as the blues. It's the same as organically, derived music, and it's like, yeah, because the audience. The quiet part is when the audience goes like, what's going to happen next? And then they know something's going to happen.
Yeah.
And maybe something doesn't happen. Sometimes at live stage, one of the most effective endings, if we're like, especially if I'm doing like a small club or something like that, and we get ourselves into a jam or something like that, and nobody knows how to end it, just fade out.
Yeah.
Just naturally fade out and just go, okay, we're good. Because they didn't expect that. Because they're expecting a big bang at the end, And you just got to read the room.
That's right. I call it the Haunted Mansion effect.
Yeah.
Everything's not scary.
Right.
You have to have some fucking cruising through the Haunted Mansion in that thing at Disneyland. And all of a sudden, something pops out. You're like, whoa. And then it's quiet for a little while again.
Yeah, 100% correct. And then, getting back to what you were saying before, like, people who have come up on TikTok or social media, and they wake up one morning and like, oh my God, I got 1 million followers or something like that, but no stage experience. It's like, you have to get on the stage and figure out what's effective.
Yeah.
And that's going to take time and repetition, and they'll figure it out eventually. And it's everybody gets their their moment in the sun somehow, but in order to stay there, you gotta learn the same lessons we learned in music and comedy, and watching the greats do it, and watching the greats get in trouble. Like them screwing up, and then the recovery is more entertaining than if it just went as planned.
That's where I learned all my stuff, from watching. Like, a lot of people will tour with someone and not watch them, and I'm like, what are you doing? You're getting the opportunity to have a free masterclass every night of watching how the person navigates a theater or an arena or a club, the difference of that, the difference of the flow of the material, the tags and all of that. Why aren't you watching that? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Some
of the best lessons I learned from George Thorogood.
Yeah.
Paul Rogers, B.B. King, Buddy Guy. And I always say this, the best thing, it's like I can go out and open up for Buddy Guy and fucking kill it. Okay, have the audience. I know that audience, my audience. I used to do it all the time, and we did it at we played after Buddy Guy at Montreux last year, and Buddy Guy went on first, and I go, watch him. He's going to get the biggest reaction of the night. He's not going to sing or play a fucking note. And he walks, the band's and it's Tom Hammer, my friend Tom, on drums. And he comes out, got the polka dotted shirt on with the polka dotted guitar. And all he has to do is look him in the eye and smile.
Yeah.
And that's it. There's nothing I'm going to do that's going to be as effective as that. And then he plays and sings like he does. And you're going, that's a guy who makes everybody in that crowd, like the Stravinsky Hall, Montreux, 3,000 people, 3,600 people, and he looked everybody in that venue. And if you asked everybody in that venue when he came out and looked looked at the crowd and he smiled, they go, no, he's definitely looking at me. No, he's looking at me.
Yeah.
He owns it. And that's the thing you can't teach. That's the thing the internet doesn't teach you how to do. And it's the audience, especially I would say in your business more than mine, is they can sense fear and they can sense not confidence. They can sense like apprehension about whatever. But if you walk out there confident and you go, I own this room, you got them.
Absolutely.
You lead them to where you want them to go. And that is an intangible thing about the entertainment business that you cannot teach. It's like you either can look them in the eye and go, okay, it's my house now for the next 45 minutes or 2 hours or whatever. Or you can go up there and be like, oh crap, what did I get myself into? And then they sense fear and it becomes awkward, I've done it both ways.
Now, we can't have you on the show without talking guitars,
right?
Of course. And I love guitars. And when I started the podcast, I was always leery. I would do a couple guitar episodes, and then people would just be like, you should have blah, 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 blah. You should do... I'm like, it's not a guitar podcast. But now, about 5 times a year, I'd love to just go full geek out on guitars.
Yeah.
And we were at the Billy show, and you whipped out this 58 that just blew my fucking mind. For 2 reasons. One was the price. I don't know if you wanted to mention the price.
It was less than, it was a reasonable price for a Sunburst.
100%. To where I was like, ooh, what could I have sold to maybe get that, you know? And the other was, it just felt like the guitar was just kick ass, man.
Yeah.
I mean, oh my God. And I love 58. It's got the different neck.
A little bigger neck. And
Yeah.
You know, one of the frequently asked questions, and I'm going to do this coming up with a friend of mine who's at Reverb, and we're going to do a real proper deep dive on this, and you know, because people know me as like, well, you know, I'm one of the biggest guitar collectors in the world. It's like, you know, they'll say, well, the Jay Leno of the blues or whatever,
right? Yeah,
you know, blah blah blah, or hoarder.
Which is a good thing because...
That's great. Jay's been loving this. He loves it.
But you're not like Jay. You don't have kids or anything.
Yeah.
So we'll get back into that. I don't want to interrupt you, but would you, if you pass away, do you just put it all in a museum? Because you don't have kids like me, and you don't have anybody to leave it for.
I left it to my niece and nephew.
Oh, there you go.
11 and 7. So,
there you go.
So I get hit by a bus tomorrow. My niece and nephew have one of the biggest guitar collections in the world.
Yeah.
And after I'm gone, you know, I would hope that the collection gets broken up, and somebody else is going to own all this stuff.
Right.
You know? And when people come at me, mostly on the online, is it's like, well, you because I had several people when I posted a 54 gold top I got from the grandchildren of the original owner and the father of the original owner in Massachusetts, and it's like, oh, another one, it's never going to see the light of day. And just think about the music that could be played if somebody else bought it. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Let's unpack this logic. First of all, the grandchildren contacted me. 2 reasons. 1, they knew I collected guitars, and 2, they knew I offered a good home and a fair price. End of story. You know, this isn't guitar collecting socialism.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not one guitar for everybody.
Also, that person is not going to buy it.
And I always offer that.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll get it back to the trolls. Be like, you want to buy it? You can buy me out.
Yeah.
You can have it right now. I'll ship it to you for free. And the answer is always no. And the logic of, by collecting something, you're taking it away from other people that could be using it. That doesn't hold water. Like in here, you'll see 3 or 4 super reverb Fender amps, okay, blackface, and from the late 1963, early 64, when the super reverb came out, to when they discontinued them the first time in 1979, Fender made 66,000 super reverbs.
Wow.
Okay, I own maybe 5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not exactly cornering the market.
Yeah.
Okay, Sunburst Les Pauls, I own 15. They made almost 600 of them, you know, in 59, 530 shipped, whatever standards, you know, 1,700 total from 58 to 60. Not exactly cornering the market. I always tell people, if you want something, there's tons of them. You want a gold top? Go on Reverb, or I'll list 10 shops that are solid, honest dealers, and there's plenty of guitars for everybody. If you have to ask why you need all this stuff, you don't understand what a collector does.
Also, because it comes at me sometimes, not so much in the last few years, because I think people learn from my podcast, The Grail, the value of a pair of $2,000 boots.
Yeah.
Because they learn, this guy learned to craft, he did this and that. And my point is, you have to ask yourself, what is the damage in yourself that you are so angry about somebody else collecting something? Yeah. What is the actual damage that you need to fix?
Yeah, and you know, I always say it's like, I don't go on Instagram and Twitter and with pictures of guitars, because that's pretty much all I do. Because the majority, the vast majority, I'll even venture to say that, like the sharing. I share my collection.
Great.
I'm not like this guy who's like, well, I hear he's got all this stuff, but he never posts. I'm like, yeah, I like sharing collecting. I like collectibles. I like antiques. I like all this stuff. And the loud minority who thinks it's like some sort of like flexing or bragging, I'm like, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah.
It's just some of this stuff is very valuable.
You can't see it anywhere else.
And you can't see it anywhere else. And, you know, some of the stuff I have are in, you know, some of the guitars I have are movies and books and stuff like that. I would dream to see it like in person and, you know, let alone own it. And one of these days, all this stuff's going to go back. And getting back to what we were talking about, I'm going to do this with my friend Jim. And we're gonna go to Guitar Center, literally go to Guitar Center,
right?
With a budget, $1,500, and we're gonna come up with 3 scenarios. And you have, because originally I wanted to do it with $1,000, but you can't buy Diet Cokes for less than $4 now. The prices are up across the board in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah.
So $1,500, guitar, amp, and pedal, and we're gonna do one thing where we're gonna go spend most of the money on the guitar, less money on the amp and the pedal, and conversely, more pedals, less amp, less guitar, and third, better amp, cheaper pedal, cheaper guitar.
Yeah, like 3 different packages.
Three different scenarios, and I think Reverb's they'll auction them off or whatever, sell them for charity, and see what happens, and then we're gonna A/B them with Dumble.
Oh wow!
High power twin,
yeah,
and a real vintage guitars, very valuable stuff. And what the conclusion is going to be, not to give away the movie, but I can tell you right now before the movie ends, is spoiler alert: it's the fucking driver.
It's the player,
not the
man.
car.
It's the player.
And it's like I could sound like that if I only had wrong.
Yeah.
B.B. King played a Lab series for the last 20 years of his career.
Yeah.
A Lab Series L5. 2 reasons. One, it was loud and it distorted, and it was consistent and it didn't have tubes. And 2, because he was such a company man, he goes, man, I like it because it's a Gibson. It was Gibson made him. Norland made him. And B.B. King would sit down, pick up a Lucille that Gibson would give him to him. Same thing you're going to buy off the rack. Maybe he had his name in the fingerboard, something custom for him. B.B. King. He hit one note, and guess what it sounded like? B.B. King. If I played his guitar, it sounded like me. It's the driver.
Yeah. Billy Gibbons played those plastic Gretches like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Threw some kind of weird pedal on the fucking mic stand.
And it's still, it sounds like him. It's like using the logic of, if Bill Burr used a special Telefunken mic for his comedy routines, and everybody started saying, well, if I could afford a Telefunken,
I'd be funny.
U47 like Bill Burr, I'd be killing Madison Square Garden too. Wrong.
Yeah.
It's fucking 58. Yeah. The same one. Yeah. It's the same one that you can buy at $89. You know what I mean? It's the driver, not the car. And the sooner that logic sinks into a player, and it listen, we all go through it. Like I was like, man, if I just had a twin or a blackface vibroverb with a 15 and a tube screamer, old Strat, it sounded just like Stevie Ray Vaughan. Nope, it still sounded like me.
You know what's funny you say that? Is when I first started learning to play guitar, I got so obsessed with getting the gear because, and this is going back to what I say, what's wrong with me? And I knew what was wrong with me later on looking. I was avoiding the songwriting part because it was so fucking hard. Yeah. That'd be like, if I get a new Relic Nocaster and a deluxe reverb, I'll be able to fucking... And I was really just avoiding the hard work of the songwriting. Yeah. And once I started flowing on the songwriting, I found myself off the internet or out of the guitar stores because I was flowing and I was like, all right, I understand what my problem was. Yeah. I was avoiding the hardness of and that goes down to like the hardness of practicing all fucking day to become a great player.
I have an interesting story. It's funny you bring that up because in 2020, right before the world ended, in January, I had temporarily moved to London for a couple of months, and I was writing a record with the late great Bernie Marsden, and we were going to record it at Abbey Road. So we were camped out at Abbey Road for almost 2 months, and Abbey Road's one of the greatest studios in the world. It's iconic, and they still have a lot of the original gear that the Beatles used, Pink Floyd, you name it. Jeff Beck Truth was recorded at Abbey Road. I mean, the stuff that Ken Scott did. I mean, you name it. It's within those walls, and they still have a killer Mike Locker, the Hey Jude piano and stuff like that. And you know what? They are happy to rent any or all of it to you off the card, meaning the studio costs X, you get a mic package, but if you want to rent the Hey Jude piano, they'll happily rent it to you for a fee, which is a lot. And the studio manager, or one of the engineers, was taking me around. He's doing the hard sell, and he's like, look, Studio B and blah blah blah. We ended up recording in Studio A because we already had an incident where one of my band members falling and broke his foot. I said, I don't want him climbing those stairs. Like, we're done. I have older band members, like ground level. And got to the end of the tour, and I was kind of like, at first I thought he was just being nice and showing me his stuff, and then he was dropping the hints like, well, on your record you could do this. If we'll just have to talk to the rental office. I'm like, okay, I know what this is. It's a hard sell. So I let him punch himself out. We get to this EMI console that was sitting in the hallway. They would move it around, and it was the same board. I think the Pink Dark Side of the Moon was recorded, and it's iconic. And he's like, it's like, here's the EMI console. We could bring this into A and hook it up and stuff like that. And I'm just like baiting him, and I go, man, this is so awesome. I'm like playing with the faders and the knobs a little bit. I said, imagine what this console could do. And he's like, yeah. He's like, you just made a sale, right? And I said, the only thing this console and all this gear can't do is write those fucking songs.
Yeah. That's true.
It's going to sound like me through anything.
Yeah.
Like, the Neve's fine.
You got shitty songs. It doesn't matter what fucking console it's going through.
And conversely, if you have great songs, you could play some $50 guitar, and Hound Dog Taylor used a Teisco or some off-market Japanese guitar from the 60s.
100%.
Killing it.
Yeah, 100%.
He didn't need a burst. He didn't need a tele. He didn't need anything. He played the way he played and sounded the way he sounded.
That's why I always can't stand those people that go after, like, say, Metallica over their mixes or a snare tone or the snares sound like shit on that record. What about the tunes, dude?
The tunes? Yeah.
Are you hearing the fucking... I played music for 25 years. I don't even hear the snare. I don't fucking single out shit, and I've been in the studio all my life. I'm like, great song or not a great song.
Yeah, and a lot of our favorite records have mistakes.
Oh.
And the mix is weird.
Oh, yeah.
But the songs transcend anything engineering-wise, and that's like when I produce records, I produce maybe 10 records with my friend Josh Smith, and I'm old school, and because some engineers, and luckily I've been working with 2 engineers on this, but some I've watched on sessions and stuff like that, some engineers are happy to stop a band in the middle of a magic take going, the bottom mic on the snare doesn't sound right to me. It's like, fuck if I care.
Awful on that.
Awful.
Because
it's not going to move. It's like you've just derailed the magic.
Chemistry.
Yeah, and it's like I want to, and like if you have a buzz or something's distorted or something, fix that. But even that you could fix post.
Yeah, especially now with fucking Pro Tools, you could just delete that.
Yeah, and when you have a hot band and you're playing organic kind of music, you're going to get this thing in the first, second, or third take. It's not going to go past that if you got real guys in the studio. And the second take usually is the best because it still has a little nervous energy. By the third and fourth take, if it goes down there, it gets safe. It gets tidy. Everybody, great session musicians tend to tighten up their act the more takes you go down. And I like the edge. I like it just on the edge of a mistake or just on the edge of collapsing, but you get this extra 5 or 10%. And I always say never stop. Tape is free now. Hit the space bar. Let the thing roll. And if we get it just on the floor, just talking about it, then that's the take. Because it's the difference between listening to a song and wanting to hear it again and listening to a song and being like, next.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
It's about the tunes. It's about the intent not the engineering. So who cares if Lars's snare is a little boingy? It doesn't bother me.
I don't even hear it.
When nothing else matters, coming on, you're like, what a fucking song.
What a tune. What a tune, man. Let's go through some of the couple things. I was at Carter Vintage the day the Black 59 came in with the Bigsby that Kirk Hammett bought. I was destroyed. I read recently that you told him it was there. I thought I told him it was there because I was there the second it came in. I took pictures, texted to him, and he just wrote, dude. And so I was like, oh, shit. I had no idea of the backstory that he had been chasing it for years. And also, I wanted to know why you didn't buy it other than him getting it. So let's get into that.
All right. So I own a guitar called the Black Burst.
Right.
It's a 1960, early 1960 double O black standard, stop tail, mint condition. It was found in an old folks home by a guy named Jim Dolfer in the early 2000s. So he would literally would put flyers out in old folks homes in Florida, going, if you have any old guitars, I'm your guy.
Smart move.
He pulls this thing, among other stuff, out of some retirement, And the story about the Black Burst, not Kirk's guitar, my guitar, was the guy who bought it originally, worked for the Power and Water Company, took a loan out from his job, paid it back $16 a week. I know all this because I have the receipt. And he wanted a custom, but he couldn't afford a custom. A Les Paul custom in 59 was $375. The standard was $265. So he was a baller on a budget. He wanted a black Les Paul, but he didn't want to pay custom prices. And he didn't even want to pop for the hard plush
case.
Faultless case called the Lifton 5 latch. He got it in an alligator case. So he had a fixed amount of money.
Blue collar
all the way, but he got his Les Paul. Didn't play it much. It's mint condition. It's 15 feet from where we're sitting doing this interview. Kirk knew I had the guitar. He wanted a black standard, like a late 50s black standard. There's maybe 5 in the world. And the Black Burst is a guitar, when I bought it 10, 12, 13 years ago, from the guy who bought it from Jim, I was like, this is a forever guitar. It's like the Skinner Burst. It's like, I'm going to die with this shit. It's one of my favorites. It's one of the most valuable guitars I own, but it's also like just holy grail, unobtainium, unicorn. Okay. Kirk would bug me casually about, when are you going to sell me the Black Burst? I'm like, I can't, man. I love you, but I can't. And he's been a good friend. He's been a great friend to me and my parents.
I love him.
He lives close to my parents. He bought my parents their anniversary dinner at a place called Cafe La Haye in Sonoma.
Oh, yeah.
He knew they were coming. He's just salt the earth. One of the nicest cats. So I knew Carter's had taken this Black 59 in with the
Bigsby.
With the Bigsby, a 5-speed manual shift. And the guitar had been vetted before the family consigned it with Carter's. It was on the cover of Vintage Guitar magazine.
Right.
Real guitar, lock solid provenance from day one, from the first day they owned it, and it stayed in the family. So there's no questions of what this thing was. A factory black 59 standard.
And the word on it was the guy played weddings. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to have a flashy sunburst. So he saw the custom. He goes, I want the custom paint. They go, well, just buy a custom. I don't have money for the custom.
Right.
And they go, well, we're going to charge you the price of a flame top for the black. And he goes, I'm fine. That's the word I heard.
Yeah. And that's almost the same story as the Black Burst. They just didn't want to pay the $375 in
a lot of money in 59.
The cars were $1,000 or $1,100. So put it in perspective. They've never been cheap. Gibsons have never been cheap.
Nope.
If you adjust it for inflation. So anyway, I texted him. I said, listen, it's not the Black Burst, but this is a real vetted 59 black standard. You don't have to worry. You'll sleep well at night knowing that you have a legit guitar.
Right.
Which in this world, provenance, especially with unicorns, provenance is key.
Everything.
And he goes, he sent me like, oh man, I'm gonna call him now, and he did.
Yeah.
And he got it, and he loves it.
Yeah.
And he plays it.
I was in there playing it.
It's great. And the thing about like when when Kirk bought the Peter Green guitar,
Yeah.
there was some of the purists were like, I can't believe, that guitar should be playing blues. I was like, which rule book is it stated that Peter Green Sunburst Les Paul has to play blues its entire fucking life?
That's insane.
It's up there playing Enter Sandman. I love it. He gigs it hard. And I'm like, that's what it needs. It needs to be played, and he's the perfect guy to own it. And same thing with the Black 59. He's he it's not like he bought it and wraps it in bubble wrap. He gives it to his tech, and it's on stage in stadiums.
Dude, when I interviewed him, he showed up with Greenie, no case.
Right.
Came out of the car service, picked him up, dropped him off. He came out. He's all, "Hey, I brought it so you could play it." And he's just holding it.
Right.
No case.
Right.
And I was like, "Oh my God." And he sleeps next to that guitar, and he plays it on stage. Now you can get one from Gibson. Yeah, fucking 30,000. I don't give a fuck, dude.
Well,
it's like,
yeah.
Quit hating on people.
Quit hating on
that have worked their asses off.
He's earned every dollar he's made, and and same thing. Like the narrative was, I came from a rich family. No, I came from a lower middle class family in Yorkville, New York.
Yep.
I don't apologize for any of this stuff. I worked my ass off for 35 years, and the reality is I can give you a little insight probably why you didn't have a case with it.
Yeah.
The same problems that we have on the road. Like, guitars travel in these big racks.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was in a rack. He got it out.
And like I travel with 13 guitars or a dozen guitars in the rack. And if I need to play a cameo or a session or something like that, I don't have. There's no guitar cases. So sometimes I'll just grab a Les Paul.
Yep.
Without a case, get into a damn car, go to the studio. They're like, "Where's the case to that?" I'm like, "It's in Nashville. It's in the locker where all the other cases."
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll have a floater case for a Strat or whatever Fender and then a Gibson, but no, that's probably why you didn't have a case. It came straight out of the Metallica rack, and there you go.
Let's talk about since I saw you last. Dumble has passed away.
Yes.
The amps are pretty much the holy grail. I can't remember how many you own, or
I have 6.
6, and John Mayer has some of the great ones also. What do you think is the holy grail of Dumble, and what is the price right now if somebody wanted to sell? I heard a guy a couple of days ago. He goes, "Oh, they're $200,000 now." I go, "I don't know about that."
Alexander was getting up there in age, and everybody kind of knew this, like eventually this day was going to come. And when he passed away, I said I give it 15 minutes before the first one with a sticker price over 150. Because for a while, combos were about 70 to 80, which is still a ton of money for an amp.
Oh God, yeah.
Heads were maybe 85. Or
the highest amp.
Yeah, and it's still like you still look at them, and I used 3 of them live.
Whoa.
I used 2 combos in a head, but I'm like, unlike guitars, an amp that sits unplayed has no value. So can't justify owning 6 of them if I'm not using them. And I have one here. Actually, I have 2 here in LA. I use them for sessions and whatever, pop-in gigs. And you're like, "Why did you bring a Dumble to the Baked Potato?" I'm like, "Because it's going to sound good."
Fuck yeah.
I don't care. And here's the thing about the Dumble thing they're kind of polarizing, especially when they get to that kind of price strata. Now I saw a combo for 185. Saw one, I think Jason Isbell bought one for 2.
Well, so they are up there.
2 plus. But I think they're only worth what someone's willing to pay.
I get that. I understand that.
It's Red Lobster, surf and turf. It's market price. And so anyway, they're not going to make you lunch. They're not going to clean your house. They're not going to. They're amps, and they're all, to use a hipster term, bespoke made, meaning that they were made for specific players. Not one overdrive special sounds the same. They all had different speakers. If the player wanted an Altec, completely different amp that if you put a Celestion in it, or a JBL or EV. There's no standardized overdrive special or man's amp or steel string singer. I like the overdrive specials because if you're gonna pay all that damn money for an amp, I want it to overdrive. I want it to sound like something special.
Distort.
Yeah, I want it to distort. Some people use them strictly as clean platforms for pedals. I think that's one way of doing it. But if I'm using an overdrive special for a clean sound, I paid a lot of damn money to figure that for that second channel. I'm going to use it. I'm not going to use a tube screamer with it.
Yeah.
So, I think all of this gear, not to pontificate, I think all of the stuff right now, the way the prices are, I don't think it's sustainable.
I don't either.
And I say this time and time again, and anybody who will listen, I feel sorry for a young player who's just out of high school or just moved to LA or moved to New York trying to make it, because we're sitting in a room that you're looking at probably 30, 25 or 30 blackface amps of different styles, Princeton's to Vibroluxes, Vibroverbs, Supers,
all
Champs, Twins, you name it. There's different. And when I was a kid, and there's a Princeton reverb just over there that I bought from a guy named Ace Butera, who it was kind of an eccentric guy in upstate New York, and he was building a rail car, a vintage dragster.
Yeah.
He needed money. So he goes, man, I got to sell my Princeton reverb. Do you want it? I'm like, what do you want for it? He goes, $300. I'm like, cool, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
But they were $300 or $400 back then. But you could literally go to shops we were talking about earlier in the 90s, $500-600, and you can go, the super reverb isn't for me, the Twin's not for me, I want a deluxe reverb. Well, if you want to experiment like that, it's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars.
It's insane.
It's like a $5,000 deluxe reverb. I can't get my head around that. And okay, maybe I want to try a Tweed Deluxe. Well, the first Tweed Deluxe I ever bought was $600.
Yeah.
And I said, that's not loud enough. I was offered a Dumble in '94 for $3,000, and my father said no. He goes, no. And that same year I did a gig in Edison, New Jersey, and a guy named Ken Fisher came out, and he's like, oh, I make amps. So we were staying overnight, so before we drove back to upstate New York, we went to see this guy Ken Fisher. We go down, he lived with his mother in a typical East Coast 2-family house. His mother lived upstairs, he lived downstairs, and it was a basement, like a workshop in a basement. I go down there, and that was the first time I saw a train wreck.
Wow.
And Ken liked the way I played. He goes, man, I tried the Express, the Rocket, and the Liverpool, and I loved the Express. And he goes, well, if you want, I said, well, I was in a loud rock band at the time on EMI Records. I said, everybody plays so fucking loud, I'll need 2 Expresses. He goes, well, if you want 2 Expresses, I can do it for like $2,800. And I was trying to convince my father, I go, I want these. Because Joe, he goes, you know how many hours I have to work for $3,000? And we're just going to, this guy builds amps in his basement. It's like, how many Marshalls and Fenders you can buy for $3,000? I was like, yeah, I guess I can buy, oops.
Yeah.
But to my dad's credit, it was $3,000, now they're $50. But I was able to try all this stuff and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Same thing with old guitars. You want an old Strat? Okay, it's $1,500 for a refin Strat.
Yeah.
Now they're $12,000. So you have to make this huge financial commitment now, if you want to experiment, and then there's no guarantees you're going to get your money back out of it. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, if I lose $100 here, it's not going to change my lifestyle. No, you could, if you don't know what you're looking at in the vintage world, you can lose tens of thousands of dollars in a blink of an eye and a handshake.
Absolutely.
And it's like, it's bull shark fooled waters, and everybody, when there's big money around, there's always fakes, and there's always people,
looking to get you.
And it's caveat emptor. It's buyer beware.
It's just like vintage watches.
Yeah.
It's like buy the seller,
Yeah.
not the fucking,
Yeah.
any mysteries.
And people always ask me, like, hey, have you ever get scammed on a fake? I go, I have couple of skills in this world. I can play guitar pretty good. I can sense the slightest human suffering. It's the Roman Catholic shit in me. And I can spot a fake guitar across from. Don't need a screwdriver. It's a binary thing.
Yeah.
Case opens, I go, I'm in. Case open, goes, no fucking way. And I haven't been burned yet. It's just a skill. I just I don't know why I don't like it.
Yeah.
And it may be right, and you may convince somebody else it's right, but I don't want it. I don't want to look at it. It's not.
I had that skill for a long time, and slowly it kind of eroded out of my brain as I have to remember the jokes, you know? So I move stuff out for a little bit of room of memory.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I can look right at your broadcaster immediately and know, just because I know Blackguard's inside and out. I know green, 5962s.
Yeah.
I'm not a 59 flame top master because I never owned any. But everyone I see, I'm like, wow, okay,
Yeah, and conversely, it's like, the fakers are they know the ins and outs, and they always put a little anomaly. It's like, why? Oh, it's a factory second. Well, who would fake a factory? Well, they would.
Right.
And when you see a fake 59, at first you'd be like, it's always going to be a striking top. Like, wow.
Of course.
And one of the tells is if you look at the top and it's too convenient or too oh my god, it's one of the flamiest things, and it's priced way under what you think it's worth, there's no deals on those.
No.
All the big guitars are spoken for, and they trade hands for fair market value. There's no deals.
No.
And people get in trouble is thinking they quietly get into something and thinking they hit the Babe Ruth home run.
Yeah.
And then someone's got to tell them.
Like, if it's a deal, you got scammed.
If it's too good to be true, ask questions, and it's never feel ashamed or shy about asking a friend who's also an expert or any dealer that's honest and is going to shoot you straight. A question costs nothing. Okay, a fake costs a lot of money and it's worth nothing.
That's a great thing.
And it's like, I don't know. It's like, because you would be surprised. Like my phone, you're like, oh, that dealer. It's like, hey, what do you make of this? And we all ask each other the same question.
Right.
Like, does this look right to you? Because you want like the excitement. Like all dealers are nothing but collectors that sell. And they're excited too. And it's like, you got to take the emotion out of it and be like, nah, that doesn't look right. Or no, that's totally, I've seen one like that. I own one like that.
Yeah.
And why I have so many custom color fenders is especially surf guitars, Jazz Masters and Jaguars. And I have Strats and Tellys too, but is the Jaguars and the Jazz Masters, if you need a reference for foam green, come to me. I got you covered because I have 3 that are straight. And if you see a Strat that looks a little odd or the color's a little off, you compare it to a guitar of much lesser value. But if that paint's not the same, then you don't want it.
Yeah.
And it saves people a lot of headache.
Well, thanks for doing the show again, man.
Anytime, Dean. It was so great to run into you. And,
I love having you.
Yeah, and we ran into each other at the Chop Stop. The
Chop Stop.
The shitty salad place that I love.
Well, you were going there, and I was going next door to Optical Connection with the greatest glasses.
They're the greatest glasses. Just don't park in their spot unless you're a customer. They'll come out and chase you.
Yeah, don't.
By the way, that Trader Joe's parking lot.
Oh,
it's
death.
Fucking demolition derby, but great for material.
Oh, yeah.
That is the definition of LA entitlement in that place.
Oh, it is nuts.
It's Priuses and Mini Coopers and soccer moms and Range Rovers all cramming their cars in these little spaces. It is the greatest people watching.
Are you around Tuesday?
No, I'm back in Nashville.
Oh, bummer. I was going to have you come down to the Bon Scott tribute.
Yeah, I leave on Friday.
I hear you, man. Well, thank you for doing the show. What do you got coming up? Tell everybody.
I'm off until mid-February. Then we do a domestic tour. We have our Keeping the Blues Alive cruise that kind of bookends the U.S. run, and then we have a week off and we go Europe, and we're back going back to Albert Hall 2 nights.
Oh, great!
Which is always a pleasure. It never gets old, that place. I've done it. This will be 14 and 15 times.
Yeah,
never gets old. I walk out, and the first time it really intimidated me. The second time it did, but now I've gone this deep into the game. I'm like I own this place now. But it's always a thrill.
Whenever I do a venue that's prestigious, like say Ryman, I do it once. If I have a great set, I'm like, I don't want to do it again.
Right, you want to peace out.
Yeah, because I'm like, I fucking had a great night. What if the next one's not great? Then you have to hope you get to do it again for redemption.
Yeah.
It's scary.
It is scary. I mean, I've done the Ryman a bunch. I live close to my place in Nashville, is like walking distance to the Ryman, and I love going there. That's another place that never gets old. And one of the things about it's a total Clark Kent. Even my own fans don't recognize me dressed the way I dress. Is I'll walk out. We'll do 2 or 3 nights there every year or two, and I literally walk out the backstage door with a backpack on, with my tour manager, no radio, no nothing. And I just walk up the street as 2,600 people file out. 10 times we've done it like that. Not a single person has stopped me and said, "Hey, great show."
Oh my God!
I just walk like I'm going to Tootsie's, you know.
Thanks for doing the show, man.
Dean, always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, there you guys go, right there. Follow Joe on Instagram and look at his incredible collection. And looking forward to his show on Reverb. See you guys.